this is a big piece of news in the fight for the transition to a green energy environment. There was big news last week that Ørsted, the Danish energy firm, has decided to cancel 2 offshore wind farms off of New Jersey. So this is kind of a shock because New Jersey had passed a law letting offshore wind developers keep tax credits that were intended to offset costs for ratepayers. So these tax credits were supposed to come on the consumer side, and the New Jersey government specifically passed something to push them to the producer side.
Wow.
Just so they could keep these projects happening, right? Mm-hmm. So total shock that this went down. Ørsted cited delays in securing the vessel that it needed to build them. So I think this is something that we talked about a while back when we did our deep dive on renewable energy sources. The types of ships that are needed to build offshore wind farms are extremely limited.
Oh, yeah.
Extremely limited. And right now, right, it's kind of one of the bottlenecks as the transition worldwide, particularly in the West, has been ramping up. So Ørsted also has plans to build offshore wind in New York, and they said the reason that they're sticking with those New York plans is because they've already procured the vessel for it. This comes when we talked a few weeks back about a current event in New York where an alliance, basically a professional organization of wind and solar developers, said that they need to renegotiate their contracts to be able to sell energy at higher rates to consumers because financing issues and higher interest rates meant that the projects were going to cost more. We never gave you guys an update on that, but the governor of New York came out and said that they weren't going to let that happen, that the companies had bid to sell the energy at specific rates up front, and they needed to hold to that. But despite needing to sell at the lower prices, Ørsted still is maintaining its presence in New York rather than New Jersey. So the Jersey governor was furious. He released a statement that's like, it's outrageous that they're pulling out on their commitment to New Jersey. And he said, we're absolutely still moving forward with our plans to transition to the green economy, but we're going to try to claw back $300 million from Ørsted for their cancellation. It's something that we talked about with the Inflation Reduction Act, that the Biden administration put in provisions that companies could not just keep the money that the government gave them to build their green energy projects if they withdrew. And this is a really big deal because historically, this has been a problem with industrial policy, right? Companies will take the money that the government offers them, and then they'll just walk away, and there's no accountability. So hopefully Governor Murphy can get this money back. It just sucks because this is going to be a delay. I'm hoping he doesn't delay it by too many years. These are supposed to be pretty massive projects, providing a lot of energy. And the wild thing is, for Ørsted, they said that they would be writing off $5.6 billion worth of assets by withdrawing from these projects, and they're doing it anyways.
Wow.
It's insane.
That is insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. And it's going to make it so much harder to now re-up, find a new company to do this, because now these new companies, I don't know if you said this part yet, but yeah, they have to recontract at a such higher interest rate than what was already contracted on, right?
Yeah,
exactly. So this was probably contracted at a 2% interest rate. Now interest rates are 5.5%.
Yeah.
That's going to make it so much harder to get the initial investment, and that $300 million isn't going to go as far as it could have.
Yes, absolutely. And where is this other company that comes in and takes over the project? Are they going to be able to find the vessel to build it just as fast? Why? No, probably not, right? Yeah. It'll probably be just as hard. So it's bad news. It's an unfortunate setback. It's an example of how, like, generally this current economic environment with high interest rates is really making it hard to transition, to do the green transition.
Right, and we knew this. We knew this going in, that raising interest rates was going to make it harder for big investments like this.
Yeah.
It's going to make it difficult. And
It
I
just
guess
hurts.
it hurts. I guess one thing that I guess is this might be a half-baked opinion here, but that's what the show's all about, half-baked opinions. Money from the government might be way cheaper than money from a bank in this environment, right? Mm-hmm. Because money from the government doesn't have the interest rate issues that taking money from the bank will have, or a loan from the bank will have. So maybe companies are more incentivized to look to the government for capital, and maybe that would drive their new business directions in this new high interest rate environment.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
so
right?
like they're more incentivized to, say, take up the IRA tax credits.
Right.
The problem is, what was really exciting about the IRA up front is all of the private investment that it spurred.
Yeah.
Right? It's because they know that the government money they get is essentially going to make these discounted projects, but still private investment is driving 80% of the financing.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's all a math problem, and the interest rates really make it a more difficult one.
Yeah, we really missed our shot in that low rate environment of the 2010s.
Yeah.
We totally missed our shot.
Yeah.
Under the Obama administration and during the Trump administration, there should have been much more infrastructure investment then.
Totally.
Because we're just going to get less bang for our buck nowadays.
I must say, okay, an idea that just came to my mind. Is this like a paradoxical economy thing? Is it possible? Of course, the argument that Republicans make is that all of these subsidies, putting all this money into the economy, is what created inflation.
That's what they say. I don't agree with that. But
you don't agree with that? Okay.
I don't agree that it made inflation that much worse. I think the analysis I've said is it impacted 0.3% of inflation.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, if that's the case, it's not a big deal. But if that were true, then if government subsidies force inflation higher, which then force interest rates higher, which means that companies can't actually do the development that the subsidies are initially designed for, you should never give subsidies.
Right. Because it's just like this awful cyclical cycle.
Yeah.
My whole thing is government spending is really, really bad for inflation unless it spurs growth alongside of it.
Okay.
Because then if you're making more goods, then you're not going to have more money chasing after fewer goods.
Yes.
So as long as your spending is spurring growth, then you're fine.
Okay.
Then there's arguments to say, well, wait a second. Consumption spurs growth. So how do you even define? That's a whole other fucking conversation.